Thank you to Chef for partnering with me on this episode. Chef, spelled S-H-E-F, is an online marketplace that enables anyone, anywhere to start a small food business. Think of it like Etsy, but for homemade food delivered to your door. I'll share more about Chef and how you can try one of these cookies for yourself later, but for now, let's get down to basics. Okay, so the first thing I want to do in pursuit of the ultimate cookie is explore some cookie concepts. What do different leaveners do, different sugars, different times, different temperatures? As a control, here's the prototypical chocolate chip cookie recipe. 9.5 ounces of light brown sugar and 4.5 ounces of white sugar are combined with 8 ounces, 225 grams, or 2 sticks of unsalted butter at room temperature or softened for easy mixing. Then with a hand mixer or in a stand mixer, these are creamed together for 1 to 3 minutes on medium-high speed until the mixture sticks to the side of the bowl and becomes lighter and fluffier. The machine is then stopped, the bowl ideally scraped, and 2 eggs along with a teaspoon of vanilla extract are added to the mix. These are beaten together for 30 seconds to 1 minute or until light and creamy. Then the bowl is scraped once more before, in an entirely different bowl, the dry ingredients get pre-combined. 11.5 ounces of all-purpose flour, half teaspoon each baking soda and baking powder, and 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. Tiny whisk together until homogeneous, maybe in a slightly bigger bowl than that one. Thoroughly mixing the dry stuff ensures that the leaveners and salt are evenly distributed throughout the cookies. The dries then, as so often happens, are added to the wets. Mixed together on medium-low speed until just combined, taking care not to overmix, which can cause gluten development or beat too much air into the dough, which can negatively affect the final texture. Now here's where things get really exciting because we're going to add 12 ounces of plain chocolate chips, combining once again on medium-low speed until the chips are just evenly distributed throughout the dough. Give the bowl one last scrape to make sure that everything's been evenly mixed, and there you have it, the cookie dough of my childhood. Pretty as you please, back of the bag style goodness. Now this dough is not only going to act as my control for leaveners and sugars, it's going to give us the opportunity to explore time and temperature. As you can see, I'm doling things out in set 2-ounce scoops and writing things on the parchment paper in a very adult, scientific manner. First up, we're going to bake these guys straight from the bowl, but each tray will be baked at different temperatures. All cookies will be removed from the oven and, after a 1-minute rest, immediately evacuated onto a cooling rack. Same goes for the multiple batches using different sugars and leaveners, but these will be baked from room temperature at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, each for the exact same amount of time. So let's start with the control cookie recipe being baked at various temperatures: 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 minutes, 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes, and 300 degrees Fahrenheit for an astounding 35 minutes. The slow and low 300 degrees Fahrenheit cookie was drier, tougher, and oilier than the other batches. This could work better with a higher fat content, but for our recipe, it's not the greatest. The 350 degree Fahrenheit cookie was soft and much more yielding, a little cakey, a little chewy, exactly what I remember served next to a tall glass of milk at my first sleepover. So while certainly nice, not going to win any cookie competitions. The hotter, faster 400 degree Fahrenheit for 12-minute cookie was my favorite, the sort of medium rare of cookies, the still moist center turning fudgy and truffle-like once completely cooled. So while that might be my favorite, 350 feels like a better standard for the rest of the tests. Next up, one of the most oft-advised, scooping then chilling your cookie dough for at least 2 hours before baking. As you can see, this primarily affects spread and height, both of which significantly contribute to texture. The cookie baked from room temperature, being thinner, has a more uniform texture, while the one baked straight from the fridge is thick enough to accommodate a softer interior and crispier exterior. It's no contest. Generally speaking, you should chill your cookie dough before baking it. But for how long? You want to give it at least 2 hours to chill through, but what happens when you give it 2 days? These are from the exact same batch baked at the exact same temperature for the exact same time, but the dough that was fridged for 2 days before baking has a deeper, richer color, not to mention a chewier, more toffee-like flavor and texture. So if you have any opportunity to make your cookie dough in advance, this is an instant upgrade, or rather the opposite of an instant upgrade, a very slow upgrade. I often fridge my cookie dough for up to a week before baking it, but I'm not sure if I'm legally allowed to advise you to do that. So we've talked time and temperature, now how about ingredients? Cookies usually call for a mixture of brown and granulated sugar. That's because each brings their own personality to the party. A cookie baked with just granulated sugar comes out not only pale but very crispy, not to mention severely lacking in the flavor department from the loss of molasses. A cookie made with only brown sugar, as you can see, turns out a bit darker, and certainly more flavorful, but it ends up kind of dry and tough, presumably because it browns more quickly. Lots of recipes call for a 50-50 mix, but I like to do a ratio closer to 3 parts brown to 2 parts white. I think the little bit of extra molasses gives the cookie more character. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have no idea what baking powder or baking soda do, and after making these different test batches, I think I know even less. Somehow, the cookie baked with no baking powder or baking soda almost turned out the tallest. I have no earthly idea why, but I do know that it had maybe the worst texture of the day, short and cake-like. The 50-50 mix was business as usual. The cookie baked with only baking soda turned out darker and crispier. That's because baking soda lowers the temperature at which the Maillard reaction occurs, so definitely most resembling a Tate's thin, crispy affair. Lastly, the baking powder achieved good height, and that's pretty much what it's there for, to help give the cookies lift. That being said, it was certainly on the softer side of things, so I'm thinking 50-50 is the way to go. So we've seen some of the different aspects of the cookie baking process in action. Now, how do we improve upon them and make my ultimate cookie? First up, brown butter, and you might notice them starting with 25% or half a stick more than usual. That's because a good deal of water weight is lost in the browning process as we cook the butter over medium heat for 4 to 6 minutes, swirling almost constantly so that the butter doesn't burn or explode. Until the foaming subsides, the butter becomes semi-clear, and the little flecks of dairy solids turn a lovely toasty golden brown, at which point you want to remove it not only from the heat but from the pan entirely. There's only about 30 seconds difference between brown and burn, and that can happen with residual heat from the pan. Don't be afraid to add a small ice cube to stop things in their tracks. Allow the butter to cool completely at room temperature until soft but solidified. Then it's business as usual. We're creaming that butter together with our brown and white sugar mixture until fluffy but not too fluffy. Then we're scraping the bowl, adding our 2 eggs, and in place of the 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, adding about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla paste, which brings a subtler but much more delicious vanilla flavor and little flecks of the stuff too. Cream that together for 30 seconds to 1 minute, and then once again scrape down the bowl. It's important to do this at every stage of the process, otherwise you might end up with streaks of butter or eggs or worse. Same deal with the dry stuff as before: flour, baking soda, baking powder, and kosher salt, but also my secret cookie haymaker: 1 tablespoon of very finely ground hazelnut flavored coffee. This brings a dimension to the cookies that you have to taste to believe. Introduce the dries to the wets and mix them together on minimal speed. Then you definitely want to give the bowl one more mighty scraping to make sure that there are no pockets of flour hiding in the bottom. And there you have it, my master cookie dough base, laden with sweet, rich, and savory flavors all on its own. But we're far from done. In lieu of chocolate chips, I'm adding 1 pound of stuff. What is stuff? It's whatever you want it to be. In my case, a heady mixture of milk and dark chocolate chips, butterscotch chips, chopped dark chocolate, peanut butter chips, dried coconut, mini pretzels, kettle chips, and caramel corn. Just about as much as the dough can physically handle. Go ahead and mix that stuff together with a delightful crunch. Once again, taking care not to overmix, this time because you don't want to break up all those big, beautiful pieces of stuff. Now at this point, I like to pre-scoop my cookie dough onto a parchment-lined baking sheet, cover it with plastic wrap, and keep it in the fridge, lying in wait to be brought to life. I'm baking these guys at 375 degrees Fahrenheit on a cold tray for about 15 minutes, just enough so that they have enough structural integrity to be gently twisted on the sheet without falling apart. Allow to cool completely, and there you have it, my ultimate cookie. Basically a choose-your-own-adventure candy bar loosely held together by cookie dough. And for a very limited time, you can order some right now. With the help of Chef, for the first time ever, you will be able to order cookies made by me and the Babish team. We spent this week cranking out as much dough as we could so we could bake over 1,500 cookies to share with you. Head to the link in the video description to place your order of cookies before we sell out. All profits go to No Kid Hungry. Thousands of local chefs and bakers have been cooking on Chef since 2019, and millions of dishes have been served to date. With Chef, people are able to start their own small business, support their families, and make money doing what they love. After you check out the Babish cookies on Chef, be sure to browse for other great dishes to try.